Okay, folks, it is your horror host incarnate. I'm happy to be back from the theater. Wanted to make sure that I could collect my thoughts, and there's a lot. We got a lot to get into. That I wanted to make sure that I properly collected my thoughts so that I can give you the best overview of this of this movie. Boy, the more that I see out of single location movies, for instance, I actually just last week rewatched the movie Phone Booth, the one with Colin Farrell. I've always been a fan of that movie. I wouldn't call it a horror film, but it does have a legit tension in it. Movies like that. If you're looking for a more recent example, take a gander at Evil Dead Rise. I've done a trailer gut reaction to that movie. I have done a film review. I am soon to do, this year in fact, a watch party for it. Other single location horror movies, take a look at Hellraiser, Frozen, no, not the Disney movie, The Descent, Cube, Misery, The Others, House on Haunted Hill remake. Look, there's a right way to do it, and there's a wrong way. For every masterclass like The Strangers, there is a 10 Cloverfield Lane. For every Night of the Living Dead, there's a, Werewolf 2025, Wolfman 2025. Two things that I previously forgot to mention, both in my live stream yesterday, as well as my precaution, my movie preview before I went out to the theater to watch this film. The overbearing identity politics and man-hating feminism of The Invisible Man 2020, and this latest ripoff touting itself as a body horror. I did forget to mention those two, but that gives me the opportunity to comment on it now. While this movie is not as vitriolic against men as the previous Blumhouse cash-in on the Universal monsters, this movie, and by extension its director and studios, they certainly do demonstrate a discomfort with masculinity, which is on full display from the very beginning. Not only depicting the lead character's father as a stereotypical oorah, straight-laced, gun-toting drill sergeant, but the scene to follow showing how this boy grew up to be a henpecked, stay-at-home soy boy getting makeup applications by his very daughter while he's cooking up dinner for his career-focused wife. All that just left me asking myself, how much more mixed messaging can you have in your movie? Like, if you think that this undesirable 180-degree inversion of traditional gender roles is admirable, I think you've been guzzling a bit too much of your own gender fluid. Maybe dear old dad might have had a point, Junior. Fortunately, this ham-fisted liberal advertisement was limited to just the opening act, even if the film does have an abiding ridicule for rural Americans, which, again, the movie itself inadvertently vindicates. Moving on. But that, conveniently enough, perfectly leads me into my next point. How utterly cliche this movie is. And yes, if you think the depiction of an unambitious milksop or a male housewife isn't a typecast for modern men, just wait till you get a load of the movie stereotypes this movie has in store for you. You know, for all the talk of how much of an oral assault this movie is, more like oral fixation considering how balls deep the director was at sucking himself off during the movie's promotion, you know, they utterly mishandled suspense throughout this movie. I genuinely find it grating on my nerves when films build anxiety in a scene, or in this movie's case, mild tension, just to squander it with a needless jump scare. YouTuber who used to YouTube by the name of Cautery Effects, he would often mention how jump scares ought to be the start of a frightening scene, not the end point. And I gotta be honest, I think he might be onto something. It was bad enough hearing the hype around this movie and the new tropes that they were going to bring to the table, unexplored territory that they were looking to scour, new trails that the director aimed to blaze. Dude, I knew all that was cap. I said as much in my precaution preview video. But watching this damn flick really proved me more right than I could have imagined, and certainly more right than I wanted to be. The trailers spoiled how the transformation from the POV of the infected distorts what they see and hear. And I hate to break it to you, but watching a human infected with lunar rabies begin to hear human speech as if it were bad auto-tune, and to the sight of people lit via lava lamps, it's not that interesting. And worse than that, it doesn't apply to the Wolfman lore, like, at all. It's like, what are you doing? You can't just throw crap like that on the screen, call it original, call it something signature, call it your own, and then think the material that you're showing on the scene is compatible with a Wolfman. It just isn't. But hey, that was a shallow attempt to stand out, I should say. So, nice try. Once the action gets going in the movie, it sadly devolves into a game of seen that before. What's that? Your hearing suddenly improves to the point that you can pick up on sounds several yards away? Well, I certainly saw that before in Jack Nicholson's Wolf. Come again? Lycanthropy treated like as a disease. Wasn't that in Underworld where a man's organs are rearranged from the inside? Hey now, how about that psychedelic visual in your moonlit movie? It was certainly fun the first time around when you saw it in True Blood, that time that they turned Tara into a bloodsucker. Dude, it's just... It's one L after another, man. It's and I knew it was gonna be that way. And again, not to toot my own horn, but what did I say in my precaution preview video? Anything that's new, that's alleged to be new, is just going to be regurgitated from other better werewolf movies, or is going to be just copy. Bitten bitten off from other types of horror movies or genre in general. And that's exactly what happened. Look at what I just mentioned. And that's one of the things that just takes me out of the movie. That and how boring it was. And on that note, more egregious than trying to bank on the name of such an iconic Universal movie monster, this movie breaks the cardinal sin of entertainment and is just a slog. It's just boring as hell. And dude, I was going in there with the lowest of expectations, but honestly thinking to myself that, you know what, at least it'll give me material to be angry about that I can make an impassioned and enthusiastic rant about. But honestly, the movie was just so bland and lifeless. It does nothing to honor or elevate the legacy of the Wolfman, and just serves to exploit it. Like, no one is going into the theater to watch this movie asking themselves, oh man, how are they going to pay tribute to that iconic movie? No. Which, like, that, as I mentioned, is what's egregious about this movie. They obviously called it Wolfman to tie back to the original and the classic and make you think that, oh man, we're gonna hit, lightning is gonna strike twice. We did it before with the Invisible Man. No, you didn't. We did it before with the Invisible Man, and we're gonna call it the Wolf. We're gonna call it Wolfman, and you know it's gonna be a modern classic. Yeah, about that. Yeah, maybe someone didn't get the memo, like, you know, the director or the studio, but an instant classic, this ain't. I mean, honestly, how do you make a lycanthrope movie just to drop the ball in the makeup department? And look, again, I mentioned it on my live stream last night, the Blumhouse Wolfman and the New Error in Terror, and I mentioned it during this film's precaution, but Universal Studios, in their Halloween Horror Nights, one of the haunted houses featured the Wolfman, and it looked like some prospector from, you know, the Wild West or whatever. It did not read like a Wolfman. It did not read even remotely canine. And I knew that going into this, but man, oh man, like, what the hell were they, like, who looked at this and honestly thought that this was a great makeup effect? Just, my God, how, and this, what did I say before? This is what happens when you have utterly no experience doing a creature feature, because you've been utterly devouring your own tail with making one found footage film, one slasher trash after another. The moment that you step up to not just a creature feature, but the mother of all movie monsters, you're gonna drop the ball because you have no experience with it. And I don't want to hear that this design went the minimalist approach. No. Excuse the hell out of me. Ginger Snaps was a minimalist approach, and yet that movie managed to make the werewolf in it was crap, but it was a very limited budget. And yet still, even with a limited budget, it was the story and the character work that makes and earns Ginger Snaps the second greatest Wolfman movie ever, bar none. So I don't want to hear that, oh, the budget this, and they went a different, no, it looks like crap. Nothing about this reads Lupine. Nothing about this reads Hellhound. You know what I mean? Nothing about this looks like a, what do you call it? A human form, a human hybrid with a wolf. It's not how that works. This doesn't look like that at all. It's just uninspired, man. And I'm not sorry for saying that you don't get full credit for a half-assed job. And honestly, man, if the makeup wasn't bad enough, they kept talking about how this was a body horror movie. Dude, how do you screw up a perfectly set up gore scene? And mind you, I'm not a gore hound, but I'm watching this movie and I'm like, you know, for a rather vital area that they're sinking their teeth into, you would think that there would be gushes of blood, but they screwed that up too. And I just knew the way that they spoiled it in the trailer, where, you know, this guy is the transformation that the victim is experiencing affects his audio, what he can hear and see. I knew that they were going to overemphasize his supernatural abilities just to contradict it later on, and they did. God, the film thinks it's so clever with a twist at the end that I predicted at the start of the movie. I won't speak ill of the actors because they're honestly not given much to work with. And I do feel that, you know, they are putting forward a sincere effort, especially to compensate for the film's lacking quality. But, like, my thing is, and I always have this problem when it comes to modern films and even TV. Don't give me character quirks. Give me character. They try to manipulate the audience into, falling head over heels for the daughter who she has to be like 10 years old in the movie, and they just have to give her a stutter. Like, look, it's a kid. We're going to feel, protective of this character, or this person in front of us. But what, can you at least give them a character? Like, give them a personality that people can invest in. You know what I mean? This is not difficult. This movie wasn't smart enough to think of anything to do with its setting because it barely does anything with its own cast. So mentioning how they could have gotten the most out of their just their environment, yeah, that's a wash because they wouldn't have even thought of that. They wouldn't have even thought that a necessary ingredient for this movie. I had heard word that the character's his upbringing with a stereotypical comedically overly masculine father figure. I was worried. I was like, oh god, don't tell me that they're gonna rip off the Hulk's background, but they didn't. I'm sorry, but it really does need to be said just because of how much people were trying to prop up Lee Winnell. Dude is an L. There's a reason why he's gone 5 years since The Invisible Man without work. Like, what? Like, really, the Invisible Man was such this triumph for him and his career that he's basically done nothing since, and now he gets to do this movie. Dude, just sit down, call it a career, and just end it all, because you're not talented, you're not a visionary, you don't bring your own style, you don't have your own voice. Just call it quits. Take a back seat, take a producer role. The director's chair is not for you. And to be honest, this director is every bit the puppet for his production company, the way that said production company is just a puppet for Universal Studios. And mind you, Blumhouse loves to brag about their micro budgets because they don't want to refer to any of their movies as B movies, which is what they are. They spent $25 million on this movie. Blumhouse usually spends like $7 or $8 million. And I don't see where that money went, to be honest. It's a single location, for the most part, movie, and the makeup effects clearly weren't there. And keep something in mind: John Landis was able to make An American Werewolf in London with $15 million. Basically, what this movie comes down to, more than just an uninspired retread, frankly, Wolfman 2025, this movie's bark is worse than its bite. Don't waste your money on this, and take it from me. Either way, I've been Incarnate reminding you, I ain't just a big deal, I'm the real deal.
If you're resigned to your fate, time to subscribe to your fears.
Warn your friends. Warn everyone.